I can hear the train, the tram.
Yeah, the tram is just, and my door is open, that's why. Okay, I'm not sure if we are live or not. Apparently we are. Yes, I think we are. So just let me share to a group. Yep, so I think we are on.
Yes,
so
we are.
hello, everyone. So G here with our special guest for today, Johnny. So today we're going to be talking about the mastermind. And obviously we got this from this amazing book. I'm not sure if you can actually see it. And it's called The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. Actually, the first book from Napoleon Hill was The Law of Success only. Then afterwards it came the Think and Grow Rich 10 years later. And then, you know, they actually published this one again with the name The Law of Success in 16 Lessons, which is a little bit more complete than the Think and Grow Rich. So Think and Grow Rich is a little bit watered down. It's just because the original one, this big fat book here, wasn't very welcomed by the elite at the time. So there's a story saying that Henry Ford actually burned some of these books because he didn't want this information to get to the general population. So then Napoleon Hill published Think and Grow Rich, which sold more than 100 million copies and is still selling, you know, very well nowadays. So we're going to be talking about the first principle, the first of the 16 principles or lesson in this amazing book. If you don't know Napoleon Hill, we're going to be talking about him very briefly in a moment. But for now, I just want Johnny to present himself and just talk a little bit about you, what you do, and who you are. Johnny.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here.
Pleasure.
So my name is Johnny. I've been involved with spiritism for over 25 years. I'm the founder and coordinator of a group called the Spiritists Society of London, and study psychology in university, even though I didn't finish it. I'm very interested with all things spiritual and psychological, and especially when it comes to consciousness. So, I find this book fascinating. It's really, really interesting the ways all the information is being presented. And I think that it really is a life-changing book in many different ways.
And it's amazing because, So it's amazing because, you know, nowadays we can talk about spirituality very open, but this book was published in 1925. So, you know, and Napoleon Hill had the courage or the guts to actually talk about this in a very deep level, in a level that even today, sometimes we really need to reflect to try to understand what you wanted to say. So, yeah. So it would be
95 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so it would be very interesting to say your views about this, you know, lesson about the mastermind, you know, with the light of the spiritual work that you do.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I think that there are a couple of sentences that he mentions on the book that are on itself, without even out of context. They're very pertinent to a lot of the things that happen to us in real life. Mm-hmm. And one of them is that whatever the mind can conceive, the mind can achieve. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly that, and it's exactly that idea that the success consciousness is something that you can affect in your life. Mm-hmm. And but if you have a failure consciousness, you're also going to bring failure to your life. So it's a matter of changing the switch in your mind and changing for the better and for success, and which ends up changing every other aspect of your life as well, based just on that one little change.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, he named this the book Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. He didn't say work hard and grow rich, right?
Yeah.
So it's about your thinking. So just before we dig deep, let's talk about Napoleon Hill a little bit, just to give an insight, you know, to people that maybe you never heard about Napoleon Hill. I never heard about him until 2 years ago. And, you know, and when I found his work, I was amazed, you know, by the presence that we can sense when we read his book. We can really feel his presence. It's just like he's there talking to us. And this is really, really amazing. So Napoleon Hill was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie. At the time, Andrew Carnegie was the richest man in the world. And Andrew Carnegie came from Scotland to America from Scotland. He came when he was a boy. He had to stop studying because he needed to work to help his family to survive. So very humble and poor upbringing. And then, you know, he started working and he eventually became the richest man in the world. And then he commissioned Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill went to interview him, and he was quite amazed and surprised by the way Napoleon Hill was conducting the interview. And he thought, well, this is a very clever guy. So he commissioned Napoleon Hill to study, you know, one of the most richest men in that time, to understand what made them rich. Obviously, Andrew Carnegie didn't have the time to do that. So he asked Andrew Carnegie in a 20 years job, you know, it took him 20 years to actually study, you know, note his observations and then write the book. So it was a long-term research in that sense. And then he came with the book, The Law of Success. And that's where, you know, all the rich details are. Think and Grow Rich is really, really good as well. But obviously, this big fat book here will be the one to go for if you really want to go deeper in this. So he actually applied all those 16 lessons to success in his own life, and he had amazing results, not only financially, but also with his son. You know, his son was deaf, and he applied the principles, and he managed to, you know, to make his son a very wealthy person, because he managed to apply those lessons to his personal life too. So this is just like a very, very short description of who Napoleon Hill was, but just so you know a little bit more about who we're talking to, who is this amazing author. Yeah, so Johnny, do you want to enlighten us with what you what you know about the mastermind principle, which is the first lesson in this book?
Yeah, so I was in doing some more research for this live. I found a really interesting synopsis of the book that kind of divided the idea of this first chapter into 3 parts. The first one being to model yourself after the greats, which the first part of the book talks about. It includes so many names of famous people, and all those people that were implementing these laws, the law of success. And the idea is to model after them, because a lot of them had problems, they had mistakes, they had failures. Mm-hmm. And but they overcame all those problems, and that's the idea. A lot of times as soon as we hit a certain obstacle, we tend to give up and let go. And but the people that usually succeed in anything they have gone through many failures, but they had the determination not to stop at failures. And because they have that drive, they know that if they keep on going, they're going to get there somewhere. And even at the first part of the book, it talks about a couple of little stories about people. For example, there is Mr. Darby that was, he found, he was mining for gold. And he spent a lot, like all his family's money, into buying machinery to be able to look for the gold, and he could not find anything. Then when he gave up, he sold his the machine to this guy that used to live in the area and went back to Colorado, and the guy just had to dig another 3 feet until he found the vein of gold and became extremely rich. And so because of 3 feet, he didn't get the vein of
He
gold.
gave up too early.
Exactly, absolutely that. So that determination of going, like, I'm going to go until I cannot go anymore. It's a very important thing, and it's really well described in the book.
Yeah.
And like, there's another example of Barnes who, in his mind, he solidified his partnership with Thomas Edison, and he was not, for him, it was not a question if it was going to happen. It was when. He knew it was going to happen, and he needed to work for that. So in his head, it was already done. It was a done deal, and he worked with that. And the term that Napoleon comes up with is definiteness of purpose, which is the idea that if you already achieved that in your mind, you can achieve that in real life.
Yeah, and what I love about the Derby story is that Mr. Derby actually took that as a lesson. You know, he ruined his life, right? But he took that as a lesson, and then on his next expedition, he didn't give up. He went into the end. I think then he found a insurance company, if I'm not wrong, and he became very wealthy. But because he actually learned the lesson, you know, he could become depressed and give up on life. He didn't do that. He learned from the lesson, and he applied what he learned, and he didn't give up the next time, and then he succeeded.
Absolutely, which is another thing when Napoleon on this first chapter, when he talks about success consciousness, he says that the one weakness that the average person has is a familiarity with the word impossible. And if you stop thinking about, oh, this is impossible, it's just there will be a way to get there, let's find a way. And that switch of mentality and of attitude, a lot of times it stops becoming a weakness and becomes a strength. And so basically it's the idea not to focus on what cannot be done, but focus on how can I get this to work. Because so many things in life we were talking about,
rather than the problem.
Exactly, like talking about Thomas Edison, that had hundreds of inventions to his name. And a lot of people will say that he was mad, he was crazy for trying to invent something. And he was like, no, I just haven't found a way to do that yet.
Yeah, he tried 10,000 times to, you know, until he finally got a way for the light bulb to work, isn't it? And I remember, you know, I read this, that they asked him, you know, how he felt failing 10,000 times. And he said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. You know, I found 10,000 ways that it didn't work. And he knew that every time he failed, he was getting closer to the right way of doing. And, you know, he didn't give up. So yeah,
which is a beautiful way of living life. Yeah. Which comes to the other part we have already mentioned before, and it's also said, Napoleon talks about this on the book. He says the success comes from those who become success conscious, which is exactly the idea of thinking success.
And programming your mind that you believe that you can become successful, that you can achieve your goals, isn't it?
And so, and there's also parts where the second part of this book of this chapter talks about bringing concrete value to the group you're inserted in, or the company, whatever the situation may be. Whereas in having the idea that whatever might be valuable to you might not be valuable to the next person. So it's always a good point, a good point to make sure that have a little bit of an idea of the whole group, and talking to people and conversing and sharing ideas, so that becomes you can think outside the box and realize if what you're saying is actually valuable, or maybe you have to change it and tweak it until it becomes more perfected. And I think that's extremely valuable, because there are other parts. One of the parts which I think is amazing is when he said that no man has a chance to enjoy permanent success until he begins to look in the mirror for the real cause of all his mistakes. And I think that it has a lot to do with that, the valuable the value of something that they're doing might be mistaken in someone else's eye. So a lot of times by looking in the mirror and trying to find other ways of perceive that, have other points of perspective, you might be able to figure out the mistake and fix it and then become successful.
And it's also about accountability, isn't it? Because you bring the responsibility to yourself. You're not blaming others. You know, oh, this didn't happen because that person did that. And, you know, no, you're actually looking back and see, what can I do? What can I do different next time? What have I done wrong that I can fix it and do different next time? So it's the idea of never give up and also recognize your mistakes so you can actually improve next time.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go into the third part, which doesn't mean is the end of, there's so much more to discuss here. But the third part talks about avoiding the snares of groupthink. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times if you are in a group where, in this again, might be work, might be family, might be whatever it is that you're inserted in. But if you get stuck in that idea that everyone agrees with me, so I don't have to move on, I don't have to try to change this, it becomes a little stale. So then he talks about the idea to look for different points of view and try to find variety and other ways to see things, and which comes to also to the idea that if everyone agrees with you, you have no motive, no motivation for trying to change your point of view or trying to change anything. So being flexible, being accepting of others' perspective, it's going to help you grow and you become more enlightened and things like that, which is amazing.
It's amazing because the groupthink is very dangerous, actually, especially in terms of political decisions. And we have the examples, you know, many examples, but one of the biggest one is the Pig of Bay, you know, that formed a groupthink, and they actually just went with the opinion of one person because that person had power, right? So here, what we need to be thinking is that what we feel actually matter. You know, even if you have a group of people, it doesn't matter how powerful they are, doesn't matter if they are called experts, you have to actually trust your instincts, you have to trust your gut, so you have to trust what you're feeling, and then you can decide what to do. So in your life is the same. Sometimes we're not certain what to do. You have the answers, you know, forget about the fears, just go deep, breathe in, you know, and go deep inside and see what you're actually feeling. How do I feel about this? Oh, I don't have a good feeling, but everyone is saying to me that this is the opportunity I have. That's the one opportunity, but I don't feel that I should be doing that. So don't do it. Trust yourself, you know, trust yourself, and you're never going to go wrong with that. So one of the things that I think is very interesting talking about groupthink and power is that, you know, Napoleon Hill really talks about how the mastermind will bring you power, right? Because he says that when there's two people together united in one single purpose, that forms like a third mind, it forms a third force, and that acts as a third mind. So obviously 3 minds together will be more powerful than only one. So that's the importance of a mastermind, not even thinking about your professional life, but also like your personal life, right? So if you're trying to do one thing, your wife or your husband is going the other direction, you're not going to achieve as much. But if you form a mastermind and you're working towards one single goal, if you have a definite of purpose, right? So, and you want to achieve that goal, you're certain, you have a magnificent obsession for that, you will achieve it, because then things will be stronger. And when you're talking about things, which things is that? It's energy. So you put in more energy. So imagine that you have a car, which is not very potent, but then you buy a new car, you can go faster. So it's the more energy you put into it, the faster you can go, the quicker you can achieve your goals. And I think that's the whole idea of the mastermind principle. And Napoleon Hill explained about the two main characteristics of the mastermind principle, which is one is economic, and obviously that's what we're talking about here. More people united together, things will go faster and you achieve your goals, you know, faster and easier. And I think Andrew Carnegie had about 50 people in his mastermind, you know, in the manufacture of the steel. If manufacture is still at that time, and that's why he managed to grow so quickly, you know, from being so poor to being the richest man in the world. He used the principle of the mastermind. So that's one of the elements, the economical one. So you'll be more powerful in nature. Obviously, if you cooperate, if you create an alliance with, you know, other people to achieve your financial status or that you want, or any goals that you want, really. And then the second element, which is the one that I'm more amazed about hearing in the reading this book, is the psychic part. All right. So he says, obviously, you know, that there are forces that it's not physical. And he talks about in the universe having actually only two elements, which is the energy and the matter, and our mind is energy. Thoughts are energy, right? So thoughts are things, and things are energetic stuff. So understanding that, we can actually understand a little bit better when he talks about the psychic element in the mastermind, all right? And I'll share a little bit of my experience with the mastermind. And I was amazed because when I read the mastermind principle in the Think and Grow Rich book, he described how he thought that he was going crazy when, you know, he started to see the patterns repeating on the mastermind that he was creating. So he would sit down in his office and create a meeting with imaginary people. And those people would have certain characteristics that would repeat each encounter, each meeting they had. And when I tried the mastermind in a meditation format, I was amazed too, because it seems like the people are there, they are real, right? And of course they are real, but because we're not used to this, it amazes us, right? They are real in a sense that they are energy. So it doesn't matter if they're alive or, you know, they're gone, if they're, you know, they passed away, but their energy, their ideas still remain. And we connect to that energy, to the personality and what they represented. And when we make this connection, we can actually sense that those people are in the room. I think when I did my first mastermind, I had a few very peculiar characters there. I think it was about six people and myself. And each one of them would talk differently. Some with even I could identify the different accents they had, you know, and the personality, the way they seated. And it's so amazing how our mind can create that, right? Because obviously it's connecting to their energy, right? So it's a very powerful tool, I must say, because from the masterminds I did, some amazing ideas came that I would never thought about myself alone. So it does give you an extra force to your definite chief aim. But one of the things, just before we finish, because I'm aware of the time, one of the things that it's important to remember is that it has to be for a greater good. So when you do this mastermind, you can't be greedy and thinking about your problems alone. So like, okay, everyone is here, come here and you help me sort my problems. No, that's not how it works. So you have to set up in a way where your chief aim, your goals, your objectives will be good for everybody, or at least for the majority of people, right? And then you'll have the attention of your members, of the members of your mastermind, and then you can help each other out. It doesn't matter if you connect with people that are already gone, or if you connect with people that are here with you. The idea is that you actually connect to sort some things out and to do good. Anything else you'd like to add?
I completely agree with you. I think that a really good way of thinking about this is that when we like something, we tend to have friends that like the same thing. Mm-hmm. So if I like football or whatever it is, I tend to have friends that like football as well, or music, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you want success, you need to change that mentality and surround yourself, not even with successful people, that's not the point, but with the energy of success. Mm-hmm. And that will naturally start to permeate everything around you, and will bring that to you naturally.
Yeah, sure. So it's all about frequency. So you connect with the right frequency, you're going to vibrate in that frequency. There is no escape. It doesn't matter if it's bad or good. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely.
Johnny, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you here, and to, thank you for sharing, what you understand about this lesson. Obviously, every person has a different view, a different way of seeing, and the more you read about it, you understand this a little bit deeper every time. So next week, hopefully, we'll be able to continue this, and we'll discuss all the 16 lessons of this amazing book, The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. So next week we'll be discussing the second lesson, and we hope that by the end of this 16 lesson, our will be changed, our frequency will be changed in a DNA level. So stay tuned, stay with us, and please just write any comments or any doubts. Just send us a message, and you'll be able to answer that in due time. Okay, so thank you very much, Johnny, once again, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.